Chairman, I can confirm that the live stream is now running. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Welcome to this virtual meeting of Cornwall Council's Harbours Board. Before the consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. This evening's meeting, it's being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams, and it's also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the council's live stream fails during the meeting, we cannot share the proceedings. I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try to re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic officer will advise you. Votes will be taken by roll call and the result announced by the Democratic Services officer. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm procedure for this evening's meeting is that committee members who wish to speak on an item, please could you put an X in the chat box? And that is the end of announcements. So before we start this evening's business, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer, Louise, to confirm members and officers' attendance. Thank you, Louise.
Lovely, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'll call each Cornwall councillor's name. Please confirm your name and your electoral division. So I've got Councillor Lowick Rich.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Lowick Rich, Trotry Goals.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Brown, thank you. You just joined us, thank you.
Good afternoon, Jeff Brown. I represent Newquay Central.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Nolan.
Rob Nolan, Truro Rodanic.
Thank you. Councillor Mary May.
Councillor May, Penryn West.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Evans.
Councillor Jeff Evans, Falmouth Orwennick.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Richard Robinson.
Richard Robinson, representing St Ives East.
Thank you. Now I'm going to call out the names of the independent members. Please confirm your name and that you're present. So I believe we have here Tristan Jones.
Yeah, Tristan Jones, independent member.
Thank you very much. Ryan Kitchener.
Yeah, Ryan Kitchener, independent member.
Thank you. Ian Shipley.
Yep, Ian Shipley, independent member.
Lovely, thank you. And I don't believe we have any other independent members with us. Please call out if I'm mistaken.
Yes.
So who's that, please?
Tony Go.
Oh, brilliant. Sorry, thank you very much. Smashing. Thank you for confirming. And then I'll go on to the co-opted members. I believe we have with us Phil Allen.
Yes, Phil Allen, chairman of the Ports Truro Penryn Harbour Forum.
Thank you. And Terry Marks as well.
Yes, Terry Marks here, representing Penzance stakeholders.
That's great. I think I've covered everybody, all the members of the board. So I'll now just tell you which officers we have here. We have.
Excuse me.
Sorry, excuse me. Yes.
Did you catch my name, Tony Gerd?
Yes, I did. Yes, okay, I got you.
Fine.
Thank you very much. So the officers present today, we have Christopher Jones, Maritime Manager. We've got Mark Killenback, Harbour Master, Truro and Penryn, and Chris King, Maritime Assistant. So I shall hand back to you, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louise. That's great. So we're going to start the agenda for this evening's Harbours Board. Could you just get your agenda packs ready, please, everybody? And we'll start with apologies for absence. That's number 1 on the agenda. So, Louise, could you read out any apologies, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Jeff Wilson and also from, no, that's it. That's the only apologies I have. Thank you very much.
Yes, you'd already warned me about that one, but that's great. Thank you. Okay, and can I ask all members of the committee, the board, please, do you have any declarations of interest in relation to the meeting this evening, please? Just speak up now if you do.
No.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll take it that there aren't any. If during the meeting something does pop up that you think you've got an interest in, just let us know. and that's fine. You know, you can't obviously guess what everything we're going to discuss, but if something does pop up, just let me or Louise know. That'd be great. Thank you. So we'll do the minutes of the meeting that we held on the 21st of January this year, which yeah, that was feels like a long time ago actually, but yeah, it was January. So yeah, we'll go to page 5 of the agenda. We're going to go through the minutes. Sorry if you can hear a phone. That's my landline in the other room ringing. I've turned it off in the study, but it's coming through. Anyway, so page 5, and turn over to 6, 7, and 8. Okay, I take it there's no comments on any of those. So could I please have a proposer and a seconder that we vote on those minutes? That's Councillor May is proposing.
I'll second.
Thanks. That's Tony Good, I think, seconding them. Thank you very much. And Louise, just out of interest, can we just do a show of hands for this, or do you want to do a roll call?
Switching my microphone back on. I'm happy to just do a quick roll call if that's easier, so I know I can make sure everybody's here and can speak and everything like that. Is that all right?
Yeah, okay, so we'll just do the roll call then, please.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll run through it quickly. So I'll call your name. Please vote for, against, or whether you abstain from the recommendation to approve the minutes. So we have Councillor Jeff Brown.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Rob Nolan.
For.
Councillor Lowett Rich.
For.
Councillor Mary May.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff Evans.
For.
And Councillor Richard Robinson.
For.
Thank you. And then I'll go on to the independent members. We've got Tony Gurd.
For.
Tristan Jones.
For.
Ryan Kitchener.
For.
Thank you. And Ian Shipley.
For.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I can confirm that the recommendation has been carried. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Louise. Next item on the agenda is basically just to say hello to Matt Wheeler, an introduction to Matt, who's the new Penzance Harbour Master, who's here tonight. So Matt, can I ask you just to briefly introduce yourself, perhaps tell us a bit about your background, Mevagissey and before then, and a bit about what your hopes are for Penzance, and hopefully bring in maybe Chris as well in on this. Matt, welcome.
Evening, ladies and gents. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Yep.
Brilliant, yeah. Nice to be here. My background is a seafarer for 30 years, mostly sailing as mate and master on cargo and passenger vessels in the Merchant Navy. Recently, I've done 6 years as Harbour Master at Mevagissey Harbour, and the opportunity of coming to work for Penzance and Penzance Harbour was too good an opportunity for me to turn down, and I was ever so lucky enough to be able to be chosen for the role. I know the harbour very well, both working on the Groy Maritha as mate and master, and the Slodian 3 as mate and master for over 15 years. So I know the harbour well, and I know the many uses that it has. It's a multi-use, leisure, commercial, fishing, busy harbour, and very much looking forward to making improvements. Chris has done a really good job so far in steering some new improvements, and they're just now coming to fruition. Much more to do, as we know, but looking forward to the challenge. And you know, I'm the man on the ground daily for the Harbours board, and Chris obviously. So got lots of experience to bring. I'm a customer-led sort of chap. Got some good ideas, but practical and hands-on, and I've got a great team already in place. I know we're short of a team member, but you know, the team I have there, I can see is really good, and you know, and we can work well together into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Chris.
Yeah, thank you. I think Matt's covered really well there, and really delighted that he chose to join us. He's been in post now for just coming up to a month, and it's been a busy time there. We've had the Salonian out of dry dock yesterday. We've been busy in the harbour with fish landings, and I think, as you'll see in the budget monitor, our next report, the harbour is performing well. I hope that continues with Matt, and yeah, welcome from me, Matt, formally.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Chris, just generally, I mean, Matt said something about staffing. I mean, just from a management point of view, what's your, how do you see Matt's sort of role fitting in with the wider sort of approach to staffing, the strategy that we've got for all of our ports? I know there's, issues with Newquay, there has been with St Ives. So how does it all fit in, just for the benefit of all the members, if that's right, please?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. So Matt's primary role is harbour master in Penzance. But a good example of the way that we're operating the harbours now is we've got Mike Ridgway, Harbour Master St Ives, and Newquay goes on holiday very shortly. So Matt will be providing resilience by going across to St Ives whilst he's off, and also potentially for Truro in the future, coming up for lay-up moorings to provide some resilience to Mark using Matt's skills there as a former master himself.
Brilliant.
We're going through a phase now of recruitment, so we've got a new administrator role, which previously was based at Penzance. We've now brought that into Truro, and we'll be advertising very shortly for the seasonal workers as well. So that will increase at Penzance. That will be an additional seasonal worker for the slipway, and also we had a member of staff very sadly passed away last year. He will now be replaced initially with an agency worker whilst we review the changes to the lock operation with the automation of the lock gate. And at Newquay, the role that we spoke about, the full-time maritime assistant to support Mike at Newquay, that's currently going through approval with the service director. So I'm hopeful that will be passed very soon.
Thank you, Chris. I think Councillor Brown has his hand up.
If I may, Chairman, thank you. It was just to reinforce the importance of having a full-time maritime officer at Newquay. We've tried agency staff for a number of years. It hasn't worked. They haven't survived the test of time, unfortunately. We do need a permanent member of staff there because they need to get a real grip on the harbour now. And I noticed from the budget we're going to look at shortly that there is a positive budget for Newquay, so there's no reason, I don't think, why we shouldn't fund it. And I would urge that we get on with that as soon as possible.
Thanks, Jeff. Chris, do you want to come back at all? Or?
Yeah, Jeff, I concur. I was handed a position last year which wasn't satisfactory for the summer, and it showed in terms of the way the harbour was operated. We struggled with agency throughout the season, so we're now in a position that we've put that post into the budget for this year. I see no reason why it shouldn't go through very promptly, and then we can bring that person in, but also look into the future as well. Mike is approaching the age that he will probably consider retiring in the next few years, so to bring somebody through the ranks that we can train with the excellent work ethic that Mike has got at Newquay, and I think that will put us in a good position moving forward. But thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I've got to say I was in a meeting earlier today, and we were sort of discussing the summer, and it does look like potentially we could be in for a very busy summer in Cornwall, and that obviously will be pressure on the ports in many ways. I know last summer there was a range of things, and hopefully going forward, and I'm very, very confident with Chris as our maritime manager, and Matt in place as well, that we are really we are equipped staff-wise. We've got some good staff, and I was just speaking before the meeting to Matt. I did meet both Chris and Matt in Penzance in the summer. We did a walk around, and I was personally quite impressed with Matt's sort of knowledge of and marine skills and his familiarity with the port. So I think we've done well there. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Matt. Good luck. Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on then to, if anybody else has got any questions on that item, then we'll move to the next one, which is the budget monitor report, and it's on page 9. So could we turn to that page, please? And can I ask Chris to just take us through that? Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So this report details the monitoring of the 2020 to 2021 budget. Of course, COVID happened during this year, which nobody expected when the budget was set. but I think it's quite interesting to go through and see how the harbours have performed. And in many cases, they have performed strongly despite the challenges that we've been given. If we take a look at Truro first, our total expenditure 267,000, which is 4,000 over the profiled budget. Our expenditure on premises has been overspent by £24,000. This is predominantly due to electrical work at Malpas Marine, which was more extensive than first thought. I'd also just highlight there that the work to install a pontoon that we discussed at the last meeting is now progressing. Mark has placed the orders for the pontoons, and we're looking forward to seeing that moving ahead in coming weeks and months. Our total income for Truro was 517,000, which is 75,000 ahead of the profiled target. And this is predominantly due to the layup fees. You'll note we've got 2 P&O vessels currently on the layup buoys, and then private moorings and quay dues, which have all performed well. Although income has exceeded budget overall, losses of £30,000 have resulted from the pandemic. As an example, Waterfront House, our rental property at Malpas Marine, was closed for holiday rentals between April and June. And that resulted in a loss of £11,000. Passenger dues and maritime income are expected to be £2,000 down, and delays to the pontoon system meant that the budgeted income of £17,000 was not generated. Excluding COVID-related income pressures of £30,000, the Harbour is anticipating a surplus in excess of the budget by £57,000. This will increase the expected reserves contribution from the budgeted £57,000 to £113,000. Rather than funding COVID-related pressures through the reserve, as with the other harbours, it is proposed that these pressures are held as overspends to offset against government funding received by Cornwall Council to mitigate COVID pressures on the budget. Chair, would we like to do any questions for Truro before I move on?
Yeah, sure. Any questions for Truro, anybody? Probably not. I think people are just going to butt in, Chris, probably.
Okay, I'll be ready.
That's what usually happens, yeah.
Excellent. So we move to Penryn. Total expenditure to December 2020 is £64,000. This is £29,000 under the profiled budget, and this is largely due to underspends forecast within the premises budget relating to slippage of works. We have found with COVID that we have struggled with some contractors to complete projects. The total income at Penryn up to December was £128,000, 15,000 lower than the target. The pandemic's expected to have an impact with an income loss of £20,500. Parking income is forecast to be down by £12,000. Maritime income expected to be down by £1,500. And passenger dues are expected to be down by £7,000. This is due to the park and floats not operating this year. Excluding the COVID-related income pressures of £20,500, the Harbour's anticipating a surplus in excess of budget of £45,000. This will increase the expected reserve contribution from the budgeted £5,000 to £50,000. And as with Truro, that will be funded by government funding received by Cornwall Council to mitigate COVID pressures on the budget.
Thank you. I think Councillor May has a question for you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. It's really about the caravan, the cafe caravan. Now I know it's not really to do with the budget, but she was granted permission to keep her cafe there. But I couldn't quite remember because I know before I had asked to have her term extended, but I think she's now a 3-term, isn't she? 3-year term?
I believe it is, and I believe she's in contact currently with property. I saw an email earlier this week regarding extending.
Okay.
I will check, Mary, and get back to you.
If you could just check, because I know I had a question at Penryn Town Council, was she 3 or 5 or 1? And I said, I'm sure it's 3.
I believe it was 3. I haven't got the lease here, but I will get you that answer very shortly.
And she possibly got her grant through our COVID line, so hopefully she's all okay to be up and running when she's allowed to.
Hopefully the benches will bring new business as well, Mary.
Well, I'm sure they will. They're very popular, Chris. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We move now to Newquay. Total expenditure is £110,000, 12,000 under the profiled budget. And this is predominantly due to the vacant Harbour Master post. The St Ives Harbour Master was covering at Newquay Harbour, and the time will be recharged as appropriate in due course. So we will see the final figures changing for Newquay and St Ives this year when that profiling is complete. Total income at Newquay to December is £154,000, which is £3,000 above the profiled target. Maritime income is expected to exceed the target by £5,000, and as a result of the pandemic, parking income is anticipated to be behind budget by £2,000. Overall, Newquay Harbour is forecast to have a net income of £38,000, which is £23,000 more than the target set in the budget, but we must remember that will change as the reprofiling of the Harbour Master Post is complete. On to St Ives. Total expenditure to December 2020 is £119,000. This is £2,000 over the profiled budget. The St Ives Harbour Master was covering at Newquay, and that will be readjusted in time. Premises expenses are £7,000 underspent against the profile budget. Repairs and maintenance works are largely taking place now over the quieter winter months. Total income was £155,000, £12,000 lower than the profiled target. And as a result of the pandemic, car parking income was forecast to be down by £18,000. This was due to the reduced visitor numbers at the start of the season, but also then the pedestrianised areas restricting vehicle access. And visitor moorings and dues on passengers are forecast to be down by £4,000. Overall, St Ives is forecast to have a net income of £3,500, which is £31,000 less than the target set in the budget. On to Penzance. The total expenditure to December 2020 is £293,000, which is £26,000 under the profiled budget. Employees' expenses are underspent due to the Harbour Master Post being vacant, but I'd also highlight that we had to use agency staff to cover 2 long-term sickness periods with members of the team. Premises costs are expected to be overspent by £13,000 due to additional expenditure on rates. This is for the boat storage and car park area. Transport costs are expected to be £1,500 lower than budget due to a reduction in travel at the beginning of the year. Annual income up to December is £512,000. This is £129,000 higher than the target set at the year. Draw your attention to the fact that the Harbour received a grant of £99,000 from the Department for Transport. This was to maintain the lifeline link to the Isles of Scilly. However, much of that budget will be returned, less £7,600. The only loss that received in Penzance due to this was the loss of passenger. You'll recall the ship remained moored in the harbour throughout the pandemic. Other areas of income in Penzance have performed well, with the forecast for the year exceeding budget by £27,000. And overall, Penzance Harbour is forecast to have a net income of £81,000, which is £45,000 more than the target set in the budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Brown has a question.
Not a question. Happy to propose that we note the report. I think it's an excellent report, particularly considering the impact that COVID's had on everybody this year, and interesting to see what impact G7 will have on St Ives next summer.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yeah, good point. Colonel Robinson.
Yeah, I'm just seconding.
That's right. I don't think actually for. Yes, I think it does. Yeah, that's great. That's good. Well, Louise, can we do a roll call, please, then, for this?
Certainly. I'll go through each of you one by one. So please confirm whether you vote for, against, or abstain. So, Councillor Jeff Brown.
For.
Councillor Rob Nolan.
For.
Councillor Loic Rich.
For.
Councillor Mary May.
For.
Councillor Jeff Evans.
For.
Councillor Richard Robinson.
For.
Thank you. Tony Gerd.
For.
Mr Jones.
For.
Ryan Kitchener.
For.
And Ian Shipley.
For.
Thank you very much. I can confirm that all members have voted unanimously for the recommendations. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Louise. So we'll move on to the next item on this evening's agenda. It's the permits to apply for hire, Prince of Wales Pier and Fish Strand Quay in Falmouth. There's 3 recommendations, and can I ask Chris just to take us through this report, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So in our exec summary, we state a number of applications have been made for permits to apply from the pier this year. I can confirm that number is now 8, and that's been confirmed. However, I'd like to draw your attention to an engineering report we received this week. And as a result of this engineering report and damage to the steps sustained by recent poor weather, we've had to close steps 4, 5 and 6. So this has taken our number of steps on the pier down by 50%. And we've had some debate today as to the action going forward. I propose that we offer permits to all of the vessels that have applied. However, we'll draw particular attention to the terms and conditions, and particularly point 3. And it states this authorization does not give nor does the owner of the master of the vessel any right to embark or land passengers or lay the vessel alongside a particular part of the pier. The council's harbour master will allocate landing steps at the pier to the owner of each vessel for operational purposes, and such allocation must be strictly adhered to at all times, except when an alternative is directed by the council's pier master. I propose that we issue a timed system to go on and off steps for the duration of the repairs. And we're confident that steps 4 and step 6 can be returned to action within the period between now and Easter. Those repairs are being quoted at this time. So on that basis, I propose that we would move forward with all of the permits. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Chris. You've made that quite easy to understand. So basically, kind of like a Larota system thing going on.
Yeah, we'd have to allocate time, so we'd sit down with the operators and to work through this period whilst we've got these steps are under repair. The extent of that repair is not yet known. We literally received a report at 1400 today. So,
okay, thank you, Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure the extent to which Mr. Jones knows the history of the pier and the players that we've been involved in there. And I would have thought that 4 years ago, the idea that they'll be coming off 3 sets of steps would be a nightmare. I don't know how confident you are that you'll be able to organise these people that are all applying for permits to go off a reduced number of steps and to abide by any rota. I saw last year was fine. Are you happy that we're able to go ahead and you're not going to have a repeat of some of the problems we've had in previous years?
On the basis that we're empowered to remove the permits should we have difficulties, and that would be in breach of our requirement to abide by the time, then I believe we are in a position to proceed. And I'm also hoping that it will be for a very, very short period. We should be looking the first couple of weeks of the season as it starts to lift from lockdown. So I have confidence that we can repair these steps in time to return it to service.
Lovely. I hope you will remove permits if there are trouble, rather than let us drift along as we have done occasionally in the past.
Absolutely. You'll notice we attached the zero tolerance with the letter that went out, and we have raised that with any issues that we had last year, which were very minor. I'd just like to draw your attention, actually, last year, whilst I was covering at Penzance, we had Mark Killenback, who covered at the Prince of Wales Pier and did an excellent job in holding the fort. But I look forward now to working with the characters at the pier and managing it going forward this season.
Good. Not many people look forward to working with the characters on the pier.
Okay, that's great. We will. I can't see anybody else wanting to make any comments or raise any questions. So can I please? We have 3 recommendations here. Louise, can we take? Oh, Councillor Robinson.
It was just to propose.
Thank you. Louise, can I just check? Can we take them all on all the recommendations on the same vote, please?
Yes, that's absolutely fine. No problem at all.
It's all fairly similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. So Colonel Robinson's proposed. Would anyone like? Thank you, Rob. Okay. We have a proposer and a seconder for these. No more questions. So could we have a roll call, please, Louise?
Of course. I'll call each of your names. Please vote for, against, or abstain from the recommendations. Councillor Jeff Brown. For. Councillor Rob Nolan.
For.
Councillor Loic Rich.
For.
Councillor Mary May.
For.
Councillor Jeff Evans.
For.
Councillor Richard Robinson.
Four.
Tony Gurd.
4.
Tristan Jones.
4.
Ryan Kitchener.
4.
And Ian Shipley.
4.
Thank you, Chairman. I confirm everyone has voted unanimously for the recommendations.
Oh, that's great. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris, for that, and thank you also to Chris King for your outstanding work as a peer master. Thank you. It's not an easy thing to manage, but I think we're doing the right thing. We're going in the right direction. So brilliant. All looking good. So the next item on the agenda is something that I get a lot of emails about as a local councillor in Truro, and I'm sure other people do as well. It's abandoned boats for the disposal in the ports of Penryn and Truro, and I think it's Captain Killingback, please, to just take us through this report, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Sorry, Chris might have to help me with this one. I haven't got a copy of the report to hand. I'm not at my usual office or desk today, so happy to present the report. The confession for the board is that it's a fairly generic report. You have seen the same sort of report previously as illustrated with the various decisions. There are a number of smaller vessels, particularly GRP vessels, Chairman. I know that we've discussed the breakdown of GRP, and you've had you've had constituents requesting information about those. So we have a facility in Truro at the moment, which is fairly unique in the southwest, which is Truro Metals Recycling. A tenant and operator in Truro has a permit to allow the swift breaking and recycling or disposal of waste. So that is unique in the southwest, and a number of these, if the board are happy, can quickly be moved from a temporary location near the floodgates, and they will be passed through that facility, which is this licensed facility. There are changes afoot in the way that we are able to deal with large abandoned vessels. It's a very complex situation. The Durandal, which is subject to a previous board report, the contractor, a demolition contractor, will have another attempt to actually break that one. That is an aside, but in the future we might have a slightly different situation if we have to break up vessels on site, on location. It's not clear at the moment, but sadly the Environment Agency are not being particularly helpful. The Durandal might be the last one to be able to be broken up on the local enforcement position, and there will be considerable cost possibly in the future. These shouldn't be significant cost, in the order of £1,000 to £2,000 depending on the size. One of the vessels mentioned, unfortunately, was dumped on us at the Restronget Gut moorings. It found its way from Restronget Creek, which is outside the port of Truro. I have made representations through the Harbours Forum. This is a trend I hope we don't see increasing, that people find that they can move them across a boundary and then we're picking up the pieces for the disposal. So there is £1,000 really that so we couldn't follow up with any criminal investigation for breaching bylaws or abandoning boats. It was very difficult, so we take that one on the chin. But I have expressed my displeasure to Phil, who is a member of Restronget Creek Society, that we don't want to see an increase in, and there are developments and questions about Restronget Creek Society and how we regulate the one bylaw there. So I commend the report to members. I think it's a simple issue that we need your approval, And the other one salient point, due to the difficulties of COVID and not working alongside my colleague, the moorings officer, we haven't advertised these vessels in the local press yet. That will come after the decision of the board. But yeah, I'm pleased that we can remove those vessels from the system, and they will be disposed of legally and appropriately once the advertisement has been posted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. I think I'll bring in Phil, and then after Phil, Jeff Brown. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Mark. We have had conversations about this. Yes, I'm on the Restronga Creek Society. We have a boat watch, and in fact, I look after much of the foreshore there for the parish council, and I've disposed of half a dozen boats smaller than Mark is talking about in recent years. We have another two which we're looking to dispose of. This is either on parish common land or on private land. So really, it's a long way around saying we have exactly the same problem in Strongit Creek as the general ports of Truro and Penryn. Whilst I accept we don't want to see boats being taken from one jurisdiction to the other, there is no one-way traffic in terms of boats going from one to the other. But we do need to work together because if I think boat owners who are wishing to abandon their boats understand that one jurisdiction is going to do something different, perhaps have a more lax or a different attitude, then we're going to find this transfer, and so it is very necessary for us to work together. I did ask members of the Restronga Creek Association to join our last forum meeting. For one reason or another, they weren't able to attend, but I do hope they will come to our next meeting and we'll have a very good discussion about all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. I know you've always been supportive, and it's, you know, sorry to mention it in the public domain, but it did, you know, offend our sensibilities, and I'm always happy to provide technical advice on appropriate disposal routes. And there is some discussion. Chris Jones and I have spoken. There's a call out for experts or informed opinion nationally to try and resolve this issue nationally. So I may or may not find myself taking part in those discussions with the British Ports Association. And I wouldn't claim to be the absolute expert, but I have some knowledge about the legal disposal routes for these things, and it's not getting any easier, I'm afraid. Thank you, Phil.
Yes, just to say, I've been working for the last 2 years to try and have removed off private foreshore a 26-footer. We have arranged for it to be disposed of by the registered scrap merchant at a cost of £1,600. We pulled the money together, but we've not been able to persuade the owner of the boat to play along. And so I thoroughly understand you and your officers' problems in Truro. We deal with exactly the same, but in a rather private fashion in Restronga. But we'll work together on this in the next few years, and I'm sure we'll have a united front.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Phil. Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to propose that we give the Harbour Master authority to dispose of the vessels that are listed, and I got every confidence in Mark that he will make a valid judgment as to whether they're worth selling or whether it's just a simple matter of breaking them up. So I'm happy to propose that.
Thank you, Jeff. We have a proposer. I can just see some more X's going in the boxes. Just point of order, Louise. Can we just carry on with the comments, or do we have to? Yes, Jack. Sorry, Ian. Okay.
Yeah, people have things they want to raise, and they're welcome.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. That's great. I'll bring in Ian. Ian, hi, Ian.
Hi, Louis. Yeah, thanks. Good report, and fully support what Chris and Mark are doing. You know, my only comment would be, I think we're being a bit too nice. You know, we're giving people ages, you know, months and months and months to essentially look after abandoned boats, and they wouldn't have abandoned them if they, if it was my boat, I certainly wouldn't be treating it in that way. So my comment would be, I think we're giving people a bit too long. And the other one is, under the HRO, do we get any more sort of specific powers to be able to scrap stuff that's in the way, like the boat that was just being described is on somebody's private sort of foreshore?
You happy to take that one, boss?
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks, Ian, for your question there. I think what you'll see with the next report, this is looking at unserviceable boats in Penzance Harbour, and there's a difference there in the word unserviceable or abandoned. In Penzance, we've got slightly newer legislation. We've got the Harbour Order from 2009, which allows us to remove unserviceable boats. With the Harbour Revision Order, we will then gain that power for Truro, so we're not waiting for the boat to be abandoned. We're dealing with the boat at the point it becomes unserviceable, and that expedites that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agree with Ian there. I was quite excited when I saw this recommendation. Thought, at last, get rid of some of these boats, because like yourself, Chair, I get lots of comments from people about the number of boats along there that are quietly sinking. And of course, we've got the issue of the homeless people moving on board at least one of the boats and setting lights to it in the middle of the night, with the considerable cost of fire brigade having to turn out, local residents being upset. So I'm disappointed that there's only 6 here. Well, I'm glad to hear you're going to have another crack at the Durandal, but I'd like to have seen more, and I hope you'll move on from this and give us more. I'd be happy to second this, but can I just check? The recommendation is that the Harbours Board note the report and consider if the vessels in this report should be sold or demolished. Shouldn't we just delegate authority to the Harbour Master to consider if the vessel should be sold or demolished? It's up to him, I think.
Chairman, can I just say there's a technical issue here. When you're not allowed under the law to delegate that to me in case I pick winners and losers, Councillor Nolan, and we have to ask the authority. The Harbours Board are the authority. It's a sort of a check and balance that I don't get carried away and destroy anything I shouldn't do. And so, sorry, I know it's sort of repetitive business, but we do need to bring it to you.
Thanks, Mark.
Sorry, I just don't understand. I don't know whether you should sell Kylie or whether you should crush her. I don't know. It's, you know her. It's up to you. How can we as a board, who've never seen any of these boats other than
I think basically, sorry, I'll let Mark answer. Sorry.
So the definition is really for disposal, whether it's and disposal means that it's either sold on to another legal owner, and it gives us the power to do that, or if we can't gain any benefit for it. And there's another technicality: if we do sell the vessel, any surplus over and above our costs must be held in an account. And if an owner comes forward at some stage in the future, then the surplus must go to them, taking into account any of our expenditure in dealing with the vessel. It is quite complex, and it provides a measure of protection to officers like me, that we aren't, getting rid of boats unnecessarily.
Yeah, can I just say, look, this is not, I know what Ian said, it's not about us being too nice. It's about Mark not getting a criminal record, really, because he's our harbour master. And I did attend a really interesting seminar at the BPA conference, I think a couple of years ago, and it was Mark Sampson from Falmouth actually that said harbour masters are in a really difficult position. They're sometimes damned if they do, damned if they don't, and sometimes it's like they're put in a position where whatever they do, they're going to end up in court, because the Environment Agency is going to prosecute them if they do something, and then somebody else is going to do them if they don't do it. So they're actually, I think people like Mark really are under a lot of pressure with things like this. So whilst I totally understand what Ian's saying, I don't think we want to be nice. Well, I think we're just as fed up as everybody else, but we have to operate within these constraints, and they are really challenging, and that's probably why it takes so long. Anyway, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, Chairman, my proposal, I think, was very clear. It was to give authority for the Harbour Master to dispose of, in whatever way he sees fit, the vessels that are listed in the report, and nothing more.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson, then Phil Allen.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, because Jeff introduced his views with that, saying that we should just use exactly those words rather than decide vessel by vessel which should be sold or which should be demolished.
Okay, Mr. Allen.
Yes, just to say at the start of this, thoroughly support the actions set out by the Harbour Master in this instance, but I would be failing in my duty to my members of the Harbour Forum if I didn't just raise the point that the cost of disposal of these boats arises from the harbour income, and the harbour income is basically paid by those people paying harbour, not dues, but paying harbour costs. And those, as it were, law-abiding users of the harbour do find it difficult to cope with potentially very high costs associated with people who are abusing the harbour. And we have suggested, I mean, many of these boats are on beach moorings, and I do believe that we need to review the paperwork associated with beach moorings to ensure that the users of those beach moorings are required to remove their boats at the end of their period of tenure. And if that, I appreciate this is horses and stable doors being bolted, as it were, because most of these boats have extended well beyond their period of initial license, as it were. But until we get that paperwork absolutely tied up, and that users of our beach moorings are required to dispose of their boats legally at the end of their mooring tenure, I think we're building up problems for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Just before you come back, Mark or Chris, we'll do the rest of the questions if that's all right. I think Councillor May, and then after Mary, Tony, then Ian.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I agree with what everyone said. However, a few years ago, when our council complained about how many boats were left to just disintegrate down on the river, and we wanted to know why it took so long, I took the time, along with our current mayor, to go over to the office, and I was surprised what a convoluted system it is to actually get a boat taken out off the river. I think we spent 2 hours over there, because I do think this is, you can see how many people are interested around the screen tonight about this topic that's on the agenda. And I agree, it's coming out of other users who paid their mooring fees, and it doesn't seem fair. But on the other hand, we do need to move them. Now, I noticed Penryn has got 3 on the list tonight, and I am grateful, and I know when we get the new revision orders, we can go down a different road, and it possibly, I've been told at that point when we went over, that it won't take so long. So it's one lengthy system that we have to do, because at the end of the day, it's all about protecting the ports, and not just the port where the boat has come from or removed from, but it's to protect all the ports, because if we get fined or there's a case, it goes before a judge, it could backfire if we don't give notice and wait like we have to. So yeah, it's interesting what Mark's had to say, and I have to agree with him. I have seen it black for white. But what I do want to ask, Chairman, if periodically that we could have an update on how many vessels actually need removing, because, you know, we don't know other than when, you know, a resident says, oh, you know, why isn't that one being removed? Why is it there so long? To look for their attention. So I think, you know, over a period of a year, you know, maybe we could have a couple of reports for the harbours that we ports that we represent. Just a little bit of update. Thank you. Sorry I've taken so long.
That's okay. Thanks. Thank you, Mary. Jim, just quickly come back on that, Mark, and then we'll go on to.
Obviously, I work closely with Paul. Paul, unfortunately, is not at work at the moment. It's a public meeting. I can't share why, but Paul and I work closely, and I'm sure the refresh and the modernisation of our systems and processes that Chris brings to us, we can certainly do something and update the board regularly as a point of sort of history and going over some of the historical ways we are doing things. I did have to say to Chris, we do need this item because it is regular business, but I'm sure we can streamline things, particularly when we get the new harbour order and we can start notifying people with vessels that are likely or are becoming unserviceable. So I'm really looking forward to the new Harbours order on a number of accounts. But I'm happy to work with Paul and Chris to improve things and give board members the information that's been requested by Councillor May.
Thank you, Mark. I can see lots of hands are up still. I apologise to Mary for not seeing a hand up very early on, and apologies to anyone else because there's just so many hands up. So I'll go to Ian, then Tony, and then there are some other people. So when you've spoken, please could you put your hand down, Ian?
Yes, thanks. Look, I was just going to suggest that given there is such a lot of interest in this, that it may be worth making a formal sort of action here around this point, because I think we'd all like to see an audit of the boats that are sort of on their last legs, and maybe what the sort of change and update to the process and orders could be, like new mooring agreements, or when mooring agreements come to an end, that there's a much firmer clause in here that says if you leave your boat for X months unattended, blah blah blah, that gives us the right to move it on or get rid of it. But I think a formal action around that might sort of satisfy the interest that everyone's shown.
That's a good idea. Mark or Chris, do you want to quickly answer that idea?
Mark, if I may.
Yeah, fine.
Thank you. Yeah, Ian, your point is absolutely well made. It is about it's stopping these boats being left there in the first place, and it is tightening down. You'll note mariners are very proactive in this area, and they will serve a tort on boats that are left within the harbours that aren't paying. Loic and I recently met with a consultant who specialises in terms and conditions for ports, and one of those things was berthing and mooring conditions. And I'm due to meet again with him in the next couple of weeks. I believe, Loic, you're at the same meeting.
Yeah.
The challenge we have at the minute is we're in this change of legislation. So I think we're going to have to wait for the harbour order to be there. But I do think on the back of the support we've seen today for this action, that we come back at the next board meeting with a big list of vessels that we have got, and we start that process to expand it and start to clear. And of course, for me, any mooring that's got a boat that's been abandoned isn't paying. That's also keeping a boat on the waiting list that could be used in our facilities. So I think it is important that we do get through these boats, we do get them out, and perhaps consider having a holding area where, whether afloat or ashore, that we can store these boats whilst we go through the process to free up the mooring, and perhaps a use for the roundabout site at Newham in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. Ryan.
Hi. So the thing we're voting on tonight is very simple, so we'll keep that to one side. That's 6 boats. We can say yeah or no for that, basically, or abstain. But as Councillor Shipley said, it's going forward. You can get the mooring details finer. So when you've obviously agreed from the start what happens at the end of your tenancy. What Councillor Nolan was saying was, obviously we as a whole may not know the value of a boat, things like this, so it has to be down to an individual. And understand what Captain Killenback's saying. He can't say, right, that one, or that one for obvious reasons. So I think there's a solution to that, putting forward someone like Captain Killenback or someone with more nautical experience, a case for each vessel that we want to get cleared as a safety issue, an environmental issue, and what the value of the boat is in their opinion in the current market. And then we can then, as a whole, say, right, put it to vote. That's what we do with this vessel. It then takes any pressure off whether there's a bias from that sort of vessel and things like that. I just thought it might be an idea as a way to get through that side of things.
Can I come back, please, Chairman?
Yes, certainly.
Where there was any perceived value, Paul, in his capacity as moorings officer, looks at the yachting press and the local press. Sadly, a lot of the fiberglass vessels now, there's very little residual value, but we take it as a matter of course. If there was anything with a significant value, we'd probably get a yacht surveyor to give us a value. And I think Paul has at least one valuation on one of these vessels. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to speak to him immediately prior to the meeting to refresh the business. I wrote the report some time ago. It's a practical issue we have, and certainly we aren't meeting as regularly as we might. So I take on board what Ryan has said, and we do undertake that sort of review of value, and also the environmental issues and the potential pollution issues are also considered. So we do use our knowledge, skills and experience. Maybe we can take a view that while there are a number of newer board members, the process will change, and it will be interesting to see the feedback and the presentation of this next item, unserviceable vessels. So I'm happy to answer any more questions, but it will be interesting to see the difference with the new legislation coming on and the next board report, Chairman.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. Tony.
Yes, hi, everybody. I totally accept that Mark and Chris needs backup when dealing with this particular thing, and that's what we're here for, the board. But can there not be? It seems to me that there are a number of issues at stake. But one of the main issues is the fact that, and Mark said it, if there is any residual value in the vessel to be disposed of, if it's over and above the costing to the Harbours Board or the Harbour Authority, then they have to pay that back to the owner. But which is the majority of the case, where it costs the Harbour Authority, then they have to stump that out of their own pocket. Would it not be possible for each and every mooring vessel owner that wants the mooring to lodge a bail bond with the harbour master in that particular port, an insured bail bond, which to the value of the average disposal cost in the event that the vessel comes unserviceable? I don't suppose in actual monetary terms, the insurance policy for a bail bond of that size would be that great, and the owner, when he takes out his contract for moorings, that he considers that an integral part of his mooring fees. What does the team think?
Chris or Mark?
Yeah, Tony, I think you raise an interesting point, don't it? It is in terms of recovering it. Now, it is a lot easier for us where we know the owner of the boat, but in a lot of cases we find that we have boats appear in our harbour area overnight. I think we're reaching the point now. These fiberglass boats traditionally are 70s and 80s builds. They're very low value, and I think people buy them quite often quite naively. They bring these boats to the harbours, they use them, they don't realise the costs in operating and owning and the maintenance requirements on boats, and then they seek to dispose of them. One of those methods is via eBay. So quite often we'll approach a boat owner and say, "Oh, the boat's not mine now. It's been sold. Somebody else has got it." And it's really tracking down. So we do get left boats for a variety of reasons. We get owners deceased that leave the boat, and I think we get an awful lot of well-intentioned people purchase boats as restoration projects, which are just too much for them, and this is one of the reasons that we get left them. Really, it comes down to the mooring fees that we do. We cover the cost of disposals within those, but these costs now are increasing significantly. We're looking at £1,000 per boat, and this is largely down to the environmental requirements, which is why I'm keen that we take part in this national study with the British Ports Association to try to work and lobby as an industry what is becoming a bigger issue for many harbour authorities.
No, I think you misunderstood me, Chris. What I meant was that the owner must lodge with the harbour master a separate bail bond, but he has to take that into his computation when he decides whether or not he's going to take out moorings, because it will be an on-top cost to him, which he has to bear. And when he takes his boat away, he takes his bail bond with him.
So, Tony, you refer then really to a deposit fee or mooring, I would imagine. I think that's
Similar.
So I think we'd have to look at the legalities of that and take some advice to be able to answer that. But yeah, I can see the concept now. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the slightly off tack.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, good idea. It'd be good to find out the legal aspects of that, Chris. Yeah, be interesting to see. Obviously, we don't want to exclude people, sort of decent, law-abiding, as it were, boat users who may not be able to afford a deposit, maybe, I don't know, but it's certainly something worth considering. I think that's all the questions. That's been a really interesting discussion. It's a hot topic, really, and I get emails about it almost every other day, especially at the moment, because people are out and about walking locally and stuff and observing these abandoned vessels. So the recommendation is to the wording is that the Harbours Board notes the report and considers if the vessels in this report should be sold or demolished. So just the way this is worded, so are we just for clarification, are we just voting on this, and then the decision to be sold or demolished rests with the Harbour Office, or are we kind of making a decision individually now? I think we're just kind of giving you delegated authority to, if we can sell them, if they're not worth selling, smash them up.
Yeah, we need to do that for these 6 boats, and then we can come back to you at a later date then with a list of another batch of boats that we can put through. And it might be a good use of the Truro Reserve Fund, as if we have a purge, and particularly the environmental benefit of doing so, and trying to clear up these vessels that we're left with.
Great. Sorry, Jeff, did you want to come in?
Just to say that my original proposal was that we give the Harbour Master authority to dispose of as he sees fit.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that. Thank you. That's excellent. Is everyone? Well, I'm happy to second that, actually. So, if that's all right? Let's go for a roll call. Louise, can we do a roll call on this, please?
Certainly. I'll call each of your names. Please confirm whether you vote for, against, or abstain from the recommendation. Councillor Jeff Brown.
For.
Councillor Rob Nolan.
For.
Councillor Loic Rich.
For.
Councillor Mary May.
For.
Councillor Jeff Evans.
For.
Councillor Richard Robinson.
For.
Tony Gurd.
For.
Tristan Jones.
For.
Ryan Kitchener.
For.
And Ian Shipley.
For.
Thank you, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Louise. That's brilliant. Right, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda. It's unserviceable vessels in Penzance Harbour. Sorry, is it Chris or Matthew on this one?
I'm happy to lead, but Matt, if you can be available to pick up as well, please, that would be good.
Yeah, of course.
So really, this follows on from the previous report, and this is looking at vessels that are in Penzance Harbour on this occasion. We have got a number of vessels that we've identified to be in unserviceable condition. The vessels are in a deteriorating condition and pose an increased risk to safe operations at the harbour, particularly whilst they remain moored afloat in the wet dock. In the case of at least one vessel, we found no evidence of insurance being held. This is a requirement within our mooring licence, and also the vessels are in breach of bylaw number 16, which is that the vessels are to be kept in a movable condition. Powers are available to the Harbour Board to seek that these vessels are removed or disposed under our powers, and these are conferred to the Harbour Master. We have newer legislation in Penzance, so some of the problems we spoke about earlier are slightly different in Penzance with the Harbour Revision Order of 2009. Now, to date, we've identified 4 vessels that are unserviceable and unseaworthy in the harbour. The most significant vessel is Arkin Castle, an approximately 20-metre former fishing vessel that was previously used as a liverboard. Unfortunately, the owner is deceased, and we have been trying to contact the estate to move the vessel out of the harbour, but no luck to date. We talked about the smaller figures in the last report for disposing small plastic fiberglass boats. A vessel the size of the Arkin Castle disposal cost to us would be in the region of £75,000. On top of that, we need to bring it to somewhere like Truro where it's licensed to be broken. We've got 3 other vessels, one a 10-metre fishing vessel and then 2 sailing vessels. And Matt, perhaps I can hand over to you to give an operational overview and the impact these have on our business at Penzance.
Well, yes, absolutely. As you all know, Penzance is a busy harbour, and these vessels are taking up quay space, which can be utilised for the fishing fleet or the workboats that are using the harbour on a regular basis. It constrains us in that, and again, it also uses a genuine harbour, prevents a genuine harbour user having a good berth. With these vessels just been pretty much just left to deteriorate, and eventually they become a liability, and that's something we've got to watch. That we don't want another Jolly Roger with them sinking and costing us even more money. So. Recently, we've actually pumped all of these offending boats out, got the bilges completely dry, and we keep a regular eye out on them to prevent anything catastrophe happening. But again, that we really need all the quay space we can to maximise the potential of Penzance, and these vessels are preventing that at the moment. How's that? Okay, Chris?
Brilliant, yeah. Thank you, Matt. So, Chair, the purpose of this report is to seek approval of the Harbours Board to initiate a 3-month process for owners of vessels to return them to serviceable condition or to remove them from the harbour. Of course, if we're unable to make contact with the owner, we will start the disposal process immediately. Vessels not meeting the condition within the timescale will be sold, broken or otherwise disposed of accordingly. And the Penzance Harbour Revision Order 2009 allows you, the board, to delegate that power to the Harbour Master to sell, break up or otherwise dispose of vessels. That's section 35 of that Act. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. I mean, it does look like you've gone to, suitable lengths really to try and resolve this, and these are clearly, real. There's a real risk here, and I remember the Jolly Roger incident, and it just, I think obviously in that situation, the cleanup and everything else, it was just extraordinary, and the costs involved, and it is a real problem. And I know it just seems to happen so much now, where people buy something on eBay and it's already in the wet dock, and they don't clearly realise what they're taking on. And as you say, the costs are extraordinary, £70,000 to break up these things, and obviously the fiberglass, and there's so many worries now about stuff getting in the shellfish and everything else, so it's a real environmental concern.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I will note that 3 of these vessels were previously liverboard vessels, so the address of the owners is actually care of the Harbour Office, which brings its own challenges to actually disposing of them.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. The recommendation is, I think it's just a typo, but it talks about vessel singular. I would have thought that the recommendation should actually talk about, should say remove or dispose of unserviceable vessels from Penzance Harbour, as listed under paragraph 1, or actually list them by name. Would that not be appropriate to cover the Harbour Master?
We've got the option in Penzance that you can delegate the harbour master to remove any unserviceable vessels. So I think these are the vessels we've identified to date in the harbour. I think there is the prospect as we go through and we carry out that audit and inspection of boats that it might increase the numbers. Say,
are they going to come? Sorry, Chris. Will each boat that gets what you want to get rid of, will it come to the Harbours board on that kind of basis?
We wouldn't need to because of the legislation in Penzance. It is down to the harbour master, so you could delegate to the harbour master to dispose of any unserviceable vessel from the harbour.
Yeah. Okay. I think, is everyone happy that happens? I mean, obviously, that's slightly different from the previous item, isn't it? Where you kind of come back to us. My concern is obviously in a, let's just say, extreme situation. You know, what if you get rid of a boat that actually was a bit questionable whether or not there was a risk to it or not? Not that you would, but what does that position? Does it put the board in?
I will just check the wording of. Does it give us the wording for serviceable or not? If you just bear with me. It's quite a lengthy document, Luke. We'd have to look into it further. I'm happy on this occasion if we listed these 4 vessels and we disposed of those, unless Matt has any objection.
None at all.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, are there any further questions? If not, then can I ask for a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation, please?
Happy to propose.
Thank you.
Happy to second.
Yeah, Tony's seconding it. So, Louise, can we have a roll call, please?
No problem. I'll call each of your names. Please confirm whether you vote for, against, or abstain from the recommendations. Councillor Jeff Brown.
For.
Councillor Rob Nolan.
For.
Councillor Loic Rich.
For.
Councillor Mary May.
For.
Councillor Jeff Evans.
For.
Councillor Richard Robinson.
For.
Tony Gurd.
For.
Tristan Jones.
For.
Ryan Kitchener.
For.
And Ian Shipperley.
For.
Thank you. Everybody has voted unanimously for the recommendation. Thank you, Chairman.
Oh, thank you, Elise. That's great. So the next item is number 9. We don't have any further business, so I will close the meeting. And can I just quickly, before everyone goes, just this is probably, I think this is the last Harbours board meeting. So this is my last meeting as chair. I've been doing it for 8 years. Could I just say it's been a real honour to be able to do this, working with Andy Brigden, with Mark Killingback, with all the other staff. It's just been, from a personal point of view, it's been a huge honour. I didn't expect to be chairing the Harbours board when I first got elected. I wasn't even expecting to get elected, and just to be put in that position. And I honestly, I want to also thank hugely people like Ian, Phil, Rob, Richard, you know, all the other colleagues on the board as well. It's just been a real pleasure serving with you, all of you. I'm lost for words. There's so much I want to say, but just from a personal point of view, anyway, I generally think I'm a very different person than I was 8 years ago, and I think a lot of that it's because I've been spending time with you guys and doing stuff and going to conferences and getting involved, and I've absolutely loved it. And my experience as a councillor would not have been the same if I hadn't done this role. It's a really, really cool thing to do as a councillor, and I'm just very, very grateful, and I wish everyone the best of luck in the future. And I know with Chris, we've got a perfect replacement for Andy, absolutely brilliant replacement, and that is a real relief. And I've got every confidence things are going to carry on going really well for everybody. So thank you.
Well done, Chairman.
Well done. Well done, Laura. Who is your replacement?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Who is your replacement, Laura?
Well, we'll have to see. I'll be doing it. I'll be chairing. I'll be in this position for another couple of months, but then there's the elections, and there'll be a whole new council. So whoever it is, I hope they enjoy it as much as I have, because I've just loved every minute of it. Really have. It's been brilliant.